think I'm pregnant.
What?
I want to be a burden.
Well, you're a burden now, aren't you?
I'm pregnant.
I'm gonna be a dad.
If I told you guys I didn't expect to be making this video, I obviously would be lying. I could say we all could pretty much agree we were going into season 2 of The Last of Us with a lot of skepticism. We all felt that season 1, for the most part, did a pretty good job at adapting the story from the first Last of Us game, even making significant changes that didn't alter the story or the characters we saw. But season 2 was going to be a whole different monster to tackle, and I think from the very first scene of season 2 I knew this was going to be a disaster. So we just got to break down the inevitable disaster that was the season 2 of The Last of Us. All the changes they made that just are mind-boggling. The assassination of these characters, their personalities, the way they move, who they are as a person, everything they learned is just off. So we're just going to break it down how everything was exactly how I thought it would be. So the first thing I want to touch on is the tone of season 2 of The Last of Us compared to the game. And I think this is the biggest problem because it throws everything else we're going to talk about off. The backstory / flashbacks that, you know, in the game, obviously we got in between, whereas this season we got it all in one episode. How it threw that off, how it threw off the characters' direction and personality and consistency, I want to say, how all that was thrown off simply by the tone of this season as a whole. We know from the Last of Us game, it's full of sorrow, it's gritty, it's grimy, it feels like there's no hope, there's no light at the end of the tunnel from beginning to end, and it feels like that for almost every character in the entirety of the story. And I think the main part of the show that starts to suffer from this is the fact that we get these large exposition dumps where the characters have to tell us exactly how they feel instead of showcasing it, because showcasing it would then make us inevitably probably not like this character or be mad at them, or they try to simplify the story as easily as possible. And maybe it's because of the knee-jerk reaction for the fans of the game who played it for the first time and they didn't like how the story went and everything like that. But the story in The Last of Us 2 compared to 1, it's way more complex and convoluted. So in season 1 of The Last of Us, when they're making all these changes, it doesn't affect the story as much as season 2, where one thing could change how we end up at a specific scene, and then all of a sudden that scene doesn't hit how it's supposed to. And I'm gonna break that down more clearly when we get to the flashback episodes. But once again, because of all this, we have to get told how we feel by these characters at every damn turn. They even added a therapist within the show just for this, where we see her having conversations with Joel, Tommy, Ellie, so they could give us exactly what we want. Ellie putting up a front, Joel want to fix his relationship with Ellie. Oh, Tommy, he wants to protect Jackson, Joel was a brother to him, blah 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 blah. It's all just here to tell us exactly how they feel, so we don't have to see it, think it, and the characters don't have to do any actions that can make us look at them in a different light. And this creates a problem when the whole story is a revenge mission on both sides. That's Ellie and Abby. How one thing Joel did had a cause and effect, that it trickled down to Abby and everything she done in these 5 years to prepare herself to take him out, and that trickled down to Ellie, them ultimately leaving her alive, her getting information about their whereabouts and going on this gigantic quest to get revenge for Joel. All that is taken away because the tone of the show entirely different things. If you told someone the summary of The Last of Us season 2 or The Last of Us 2 game and what went on in it, the whole plot and everything like like that, and then they went on to go watch the show for themselves, I think they will see two entirely different things. Whether you had played the game first and watched it, or someone just described it to you, like I said, it will feel entirely different. And that's because the tone, the conversations, the dialogue, everything is completely off. And when you throw that in with the massive changes we're about to go over with the characters, the backstory, the order that things are taking place, it ruins everything The Last of Us 2 was trying to do. I'm sure you guys knew this was coming, the Ellie problem. I don't know who I've been watching on my screen for 6 of these 7 episodes for season 2, but this is not Ellie. And I don't even want to say it's necessarily a Bella Ramsey problem, because like I said, 6 out of the 7 episodes, she played a young Ellie pretty well. We saw that in season 1, and we also saw that in the flashback episode in all the scenes with Pedro Pascal as Joel when he came back in episode 6. All that was great, but she does not play 19-year-old Ellie well at all. Like, she does a horrible job at that, and it's the main reason I would say the tone of the show is off. The second Joel dies and that light goes out for Ellie, it's straight demon mode. It's demon time for the rest of the show, and she doesn't seem like she has any sort of urgency or motivation to really go and get this revenge. And there's multiple times that showcase this where we have to see Dina explain to Ellie why she should be mad, why she should get revenge, how it should go, basically telling her get on her shit. Or we see Dina taking everything way more seriously than her, where Ellie is walking around acting like this is a damn field trip. And then people started to have problems with this early on, and then she finally gets to the scene where we of course see her kill Nora, or at least leave her for dead, torture her to get information, and of course end up taking out Abby's 2 other friends. And it was like, oh, this what y'all been waiting for? She's finally mad, she's finally angry, y'all can stop complaining. But no, her anger, her revenge, her motivation, the whole reason that there's a second game or a season 2 of this or any of that, it shouldn't be a on or off switch where, okay, we don't need you to be mad anymore, okay, time to be mad in this scene. No, she is this way for the entirety of the game. In real life, as humans, emotions are more like a roller coaster. You can't feel one way all the time. It's ups, downs, ebbs, flows, etc, etc. When Joel dies, it's like that moment in a roller coaster where you get to the top, to the peak, and it stops there for about 10 seconds. Ellie is at that point for the entirety of the second game, and it should be like that in the entirety of season 2, and she's not. And we know later when she goes after Abby and they get into that fight, and then we get all the flashbacks and backstories, we're gonna dive into all that next. That's when it fully crashes and she goes all the way down and starts to realize everything she's been doing. The moment you've been waiting for in the roller coaster, it's just like how her story and her character progression is supposed to go this season, but they don't do that at all, and it just fucks up her whole character. She's still playing 14-year-old Ellie. She's walking around having fun, telling jokes, and then they're like, okay, you need to be mad in this scene, time to be mad. She doesn't have that grit to her, the capability. She doesn't even seem as smart or capable as she did in the game. And another point of contention I want to make is people say it's because we're playing a game and she's walking around killing all these affected and taking out all these grown men. She's a one-woman army. She's John Wick. And I'm not saying she necessarily had to be like that. I do understand that in the game they amp that up for gameplay purposes, because you actually are the character and they want you to be engaged with what's going on. But even within the show, she seems incapable of doing or getting anything done herself. And in the game, characters like Dina, Tommy, all of them were really big helps, to be honest, but that doesn't mean Ellie was incapable of handling shit herself. And in the show, she just seems so incompetent, which is funny because at the end of every one of these episodes, the creator, the writers, they go and do a show and talk about the scenes and the decisions they make. And he specifically said that Ellie is incompetent and Abby is not.
And Abby seemingly is not like Ellie, in that Abby is incredibly competent. Well, for all the people out there that said that Ellie was being written as incompetent, you were right.
When that is far from the truth. Ellie is not incompetent in the game at all. You can see she's impulsive. She makes untimely decisions that gets someone hurt or puts her in danger or fucks some shit up, but to say she's not competent is completely mischaracterizing her. And I think his mischaracterization of her is what made us get this Bella Ramsey acting performance as a 19-year-old Ellie, where it just doesn't fit at all. It completely brings down the tone, the mood, everything surrounding the show. Like literally there's times where if you're watching the show, you start to think like, wait, aren't they supposed to be going for revenge? Aren't they supposed to be doing this? Like, it feels like their whole goal and motive is at a standstill, and that's simply because this is not Ellie. And last up, the flashback episode. The problem with the way they told the story within the show, the order of events that took place. Now, some of you guys probably are wondering what I mean, and obviously compared to the game, we got an entirely different order of events within the show, and that's with them deciding to make episode 6, the entire episode, all of the flashbacks of Joel and Ellie, whereas in the game we got those intermediately or at specific moments within the story. And I think that just was a way better way to do it, and let me explain why. Because I do 100% think that this was easily the best episode of the entire show. Once again, this is when Bella Ramsey is actually acting like a young Ellie. Obviously Pedro Pascal was great as Joel. We get all those moments of context and everything like that, but the problem with the way they did it of stuffing it all within one episode is it would have helped with the tone, the mood, the atmosphere, everything. It would help recontextualize and showcase every time Ellie is doing something that she's doing, why she's doing it, why she's feeling this pain. When she's playing the guitar and all those scenes and thinking about Joel, then you show these flashbacks and these scenes. You don't wait, you do it in these moments to bring everything full circle instead of doing it all at once. You have to constantly recontextualize why she's doing what she's doing, especially if you're doing the story in a way that you don't want people to dislike Ellie or be mad at her. Constantly showing her and Joe and everything they've been through, it would help with that easily. And the second problem with the way of doing this order of events is they decided to leave Abby, everything she's done, completely out, where at the end of the season it leads up to the moment where Abby finds the theater, she kills Jesse, pulls a gun on Tommy, and she possibly shoots Ellie. The season ends off with Abby going back to day one of Seattle. So now we got to see her whole journey leading back up to that point and get her flashbacks and her story and everything like that, when it all should have been intertwined. It just wasn't. I don't understand the decision to go in that direction. From the Abby standpoint, I think they obviously did it because they didn't want people to hate Abby off rep, so they tried to immediately throw us her motivation in the very first scene of season 2, which I didn't like at all, because once again in the game it was a surprise when they just took out Joe. Even though we kind of had context from the first game why they would have did it, it was nice not knowing. And when you do play as Abby and get the context and her flashbacks and all that, then it recontextualizes her situation as well, where people still hated Abby because they love Joel so much, because they played a whole game as that main character. But that doesn't mean they didn't understand why she did what she did. And that's the problem with the Last of Us TV show writers. They think people hated the game because they didn't understand, so they try to simplify it, trying to tell you exactly what to think, exactly what to feel, exactly what you're supposed to be responding to, all the emotions, reactions. They're trying to tell you what you should be doing instead of showcasing it and letting you have your own thoughts, opinions, and process of the situation. And that completely throws everything off. Throwing all Ellie flashbacks in one episode, it kind of makes sense why she's doing the whole on off switch with her motives, her revenge, her urgency to get back for Joel, because she isn't constantly being showcased like, hey, this is on my mind 24/7, this is all I'm focused on, I can't worry about Dina being pregnant because she's in a way, she's a burden, etc, etc. Abby, we don't need an entire season of her flashbacks. I didn't like that Abby was in like 2 episodes and then we didn't see her again until the very last scene of the season. Now we gotta get everything back from Seattle day one. They're just stretching this shit out. I saw somewhere that they're possibly gonna try to do a season 4, so they're possibly gonna try to do day 1 of Seattle up to where we left off at the end of season 2. They're gonna do all that for Abby, as well as throw in her flashback episode with her dad, her relationship, maybe her grind to get back for Joe and everything like that. And then we're gonna end off season 3 exactly where we just left off in season 2. That makes absolutely no sense. So that means we're gonna possibly have to get a 4th season to actually see the resolution of how all this plays out, and that's simply because they decided to waste a whole episode on a flashback. And I hate to say waste, because once again, that was the best episode of the entire season, but because of that, they're talking about, hey, we need 4 seasons to finish the show. You're doing 6, 7, 8 episodes in a season. Just add more episodes. It makes absolutely no sense. They could have did a 2A 2B side to this season, and then season 3 could have been the last season. We should be going into Abby's point of view if they wanted to do it like this. This season could have easily been 14 to 16 episodes, but they chose not to do that, to stretch the show out, and now we have to get a whole season focused on Abby, in which they gave us her motive early so people wouldn't dislike her, and people still dislike her. So how are we supposed to survive a whole entire season about just her with minimal input from Ellie? Obviously no Pedro Pascal is Joel. How is this gonna work? All this with the timeline and the order of events, the way they chose to go about it within the show, it once again throws everything in the entire story off. And I said this in the intro and I'll reiterate it once again. The first game, it's a linear story more so you could change a few things and still get from point A to point B. Story 2 is so complex, convoluted, so many pieces going on, flashing back to the past, connecting this to that, showing all these parallels, that you change one thing, everything is thrown out of whack. So they change one thing and try to hit the same story beat, and it just doesn't work. So we have to see them stretch it out for 2 more seasons to finally get a resolution without Joel, Pedro Pascal, like I said, a whole season possibly about Abby. I just don't think this is gonna work, and because of the choices they made, it was inevitable that this season was gonna fail. And I think the biggest indicator of all this, probably the last thing I'm going to talk about in this video, that I probably should have mentioned earlier, because this is my biggest problem with this entire season, and that's once again within the flashback episode, showing the scene and conversation between Joel and Ellie that they had on the porch the day before he died. And this is very important because it talks about giving their relationship hope for the future, that she can't forgive him right now but she wants to, so maybe one day. And obviously with him dying the next day, all that hope is snuffed out. Well, within the game, we do not get this scene till she's about to kill Abby, and she starts reflecting back on Joel and his meaning to her, and if she really wants to do this, and she lets Abby go. And then we finally see her return home. She's playing the guitar, and we get the scene of her and Joel talking about this hope, about one day forgiving him, how everything could be how it used to be. But ultimately, obviously with him dying, we didn't get there. With them revealing this scene so early, it once again throws everything off. Showcasing that scene, I mean, I'm not going to even say that. I'm going to give them one more chance to make it work, but I don't see how them giving us this scene up front early could add on to the meaning of it, to the story, make it better in any way, shape, or form. I feel like it lessens everything going on because we didn't know about that conversation. We thought Joel died with Ellie hating him, never gonna forgive him, but there was hope there, and that's one of the biggest keys of the ending to The Last of Us 2. And I think they took a swing and they completely missed, and that change, deciding to throw all the flashbacks in one episode and tell the story of events in this order, is ultimately what caused all of that. Overall though, that's it for this video. That's kind of just a little outro to wrap up my thoughts and feelings surrounding this season. I just think they made so many mistakes, and that comes from two things. One, obviously mischaracterizing Ellie and who she is as a person now at 19, making so many flaws and mistakes with her that the tone, it just completely shifts the direction of the show, the motive, the urgency, everything she needs to be doing to get this revenge. The whole thing is about revenge and the parallels and cause and effect. They're just doing everything wrong. And two, the writers and storytellers trying to fix the quote-unquote criticisms the fans had with the second game. They're trying to do things like, and you know how people say in hindsight, if you could change this it could be better, and hindsight is 2020 and all this and that. Well, they're doing this in hindsight and they're making it even worse, which is crazy to say. I think I mentioned earlier, like, I wasn't the biggest fan of the second game, but I understood all the decisions and choices. That was never the problem. But they treat the story and the viewers, the watchers, and us like we are stupid. So they have to dumb it down as much as possible. Be like, oh, you finally get it now. You get why they're doing this. You get why it's like this, etc., etc. And that just completely unravels the entire story as a whole. So yeah, they failed. We're just gonna have to wait and see how season 3 turns out. If they're gonna be pushing for season 4, once again, that's crazy. Just add episodes in seasons. They could have done a 2A 2B type season, split it in half, or do alternating episodes with Ellie and Abby this season like the game was, which would have made more sense, but they decided against that. It's just so many problems. We're just gonna have to wait and see how it all plays out, but I inevitably knew this season would be a disaster.